It's one of the best games, the biggest games of the year.
Yeah.
This game, of all the games this weekend, there are higher profile games this weekend, obviously, but none of the games this weekend have a bigger impact on this year's playoff picture than this one. None of the games this weekend will have a bigger impact on who wins a particular division than this one. And to answer your question, the Texans, at first glance, would appear to have a number of edges in this game. They have the better the better quarterback. They have the healthier team.
You said it right.
You almost said
I know that's your guy. I know.
No, well, that is why, I mean, spoiler alert, I'm going to pick the Colts. I picked the Colts to win this division before the year, post Andrew Luck's retirement, not only because I believe in Jacoby Brissett, who made some excellent plays last week in a game that was close early on, and then they ended up blowing out their opponent, but also because the coaching discrepancy between Frank Reich, who I believe is already one of the 6 best coaches in the NFL. I think he has proven it. What he's doing this year without the quarterback they expected to have, dealing with T.Y. Hilton's injury, who might be back tonight, Eric Ebron's injury, who might be back tonight. Now they're going to have to do it without Marlon Mack, who broke his hand at the end of last week's game. What he has done and his situational coaching, which I feel like was a big part of the Eagles' success, their Super Bowl run, was Frank Reich's situational coaching and understanding.
As their offensive coordinator.
I think Doug Peterson gleaned some of that stuff from Frank. That the mismatch between he and Bill O'Brien, who could coach in the NFL for 100 years and will never understand the clock, will never understand challenges, will never understand the most basic things you can do on Sunday or on a Thursday to put your team in a better position to win. I like the Colts. I like the Colts to win this game. I like the Colts to win this division. And it's a shame for the Texans because Deshaun Watson's on his rookie contract, and they have a bunch of talent on that team, but they've underachieved up to this point in the season. I think that continues tonight.
Man, this is tough. As much as I do like the Colts, as a player, if I were to put myself in Deshaun Watson's shoes, I'm not having another performance like I did last week.
Sure.
And so in knowing that, and knowing the kind of player he is, and the kind of leader he is, and how he wants to be great for his team and elevate the play of his team, I got to go with the Texans because I just don't think, as great of a quarterback, for all the reasons you mentioned and all the players that the Colts are missing or potentially will have back, it won't matter to Deshaun Watson. And I know there's so many other players that are going to be playing in this game for the Houston Texans, but he is the key to their success. Defensively, they have what it takes. They just got to put it on the field. Offensively, it's all about Deshaun Watson, and I don't see him having a game like he did last week against the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah.
And go ahead, Jenna.
No, I was going to say they got shellacked last week. It's hard to imagine. And Deshaun Watson played arguably his worst game of the season. It's hard to imagine he would have back-to-back games like that.
And Deshaun's never had a bad primetime game. 6 career primetime games, 19 touchdowns, 2 picks, and a 121 rating. When the lights are the brightest, dating back to college, he's at his best. Just, folks, if you haven't been watching the Texans this year, there's going to be some time where you see the red challenge flag on the field, Bill O'Brien screaming at a ref, and you're going to say, wait, what just happened here? And Frank Reich's going to be totally poised, going to be totally fine, and have his team in control. I think that tilts the scales to the Colts.
Yes, but does Tom Brady still instill that type of fear in opponents today as we approach this Sunday?
I think the audience might be a little surprised by what I'm about to say here, but absolutely unequivocally, yes. Teams should still fear Brady. I know he's been bad this year. It's the worst year he's had in at least 15 years, maybe the worst year since his rookie season. And the numbers are ugly, and they're particularly ugly when they're not only compared to his career, but to his contemporaries in the league right now. Because what a 90 passer rating in 2019 is very different than a 90 passer rating in 2009 or in 2004 because of the passing revolution. And the biggest weakness for the New England Patriots right now is their passing attack and is the lack of high-potency offense. But this is where, and I've said many times, just because you're the GOAT doesn't mean you're the GOAT every single year. Just because you're the greatest ever doesn't mean you are the greatest currently. But this is where you do get that greatest of all time extra credit, at least to me. When I'm watching the Patriots, if I bet against the Patriots, if I'm rooting against the Patriots, no matter how poorly Brady has played, if they are on the field down less than a score, it's terrifying. Because you have nothing but memories of this guy for 20 years coming through in those moments. So And Jason Garrett's got to be afraid of this game for a lot of reasons. One is for his own job security part of it. But where I can look at the numbers and fairly analyze Brady the way he's fairly analyzing himself. He and the passing offense have been substandard all year long, whether that's offensive line, receivers, quarterback, player, all of the above, Greg, and it probably is all of the above. Everyone owns a little bit in this team not having more punch in their offense. But still, he's on a short list of quarterbacks that if it's a 4-point game in the fourth quarter with 5 minutes left, who do you not want to have the ball? No matter how many quarterbacks are ranked above him, there's only 2 or 3 in football that you would feel more confident in that situation, even this season, at least for me when I'm watching the Patriots. Maybe too much of that is the ghosts of Christmas in Tom Brady's past, but it still is that relevant in my mind's eye, and I think that's what Jason Garrett's talking about.
Okay, so before I answer the question, I'm going to address Jason Garrett in his presser. I've always hated when coaches lather on and massage your opponent. I get it. You're going to pay them respect, but come on. Like, we all know how great Tom Brady is. For his guys to hear him say all these things about Tom Brady, it's like, look, coach, you're not saying that to us. You can say he's great. He's been great. He and Belichick have done some special things. And just move on from there. You don't have to keep listing everything. I don't like when coaches do that. I just had to share that. Now, to answer your question, no. No, I agree with everything you said. But the reason why Tom Brady shouldn't put fear in anyone is because of the pieces that he lacks around him. The lack of playmakers that he has. Edelman being the only guy that he can truly rely on. Outside of that, Philip Dorsett, Mohamed Sanu, I like these guys, but I'm not threatened by them. And so ultimately, it falls on Brady to say he can't do the same things that he would do had he been younger, or if he were younger, and if he were doing it with Randy Mosses or Antonio Brown.
Last year, Greg, who did he have last year besides Gronk occasionally in the lineup? That it was such a different offense that he had last year that they marched their way to the Super Bowl.
I guess what I'm saying is he's going to always be Brady. To your point, in the waning moments of the game, does he strike fear in you? Yes. Because of exactly what you're talking about. Historically, we replay every game-winning drive or the one that has haunted us the most about Tom Brady. And that's what we don't want to happen and don't want to see in that moment. So, yes, you're going to be on the sideline standing as a player like, anxious. Okay, here he goes again. Come on, defense, stop him, because you know what he's capable of. But without the supporting guys, he can't do it the way he once did.
It's the opposite feeling that you get if your team's playing Phillip Rivers, where you're like, well, we might be okay because he might just give it to us. And so no matter what the history says there. But, Jenna, to quote a line from misquote a line from one of your favorite shows, you just yada-yada'd the Gronk. This is the guy who on a per-game basis, I would argue, is the most impactful tight end ever.
Yes.
And that's with respect to Shannon and Tony, who did it far longer, and I know how great those players were. But Gronk, even last year, a lesser version of himself. In the overtime against Kansas City, Gronk showed up. And on the only touchdown drive of the Super Bowl, Gronk showed up. But the other thing that was different last year is, last year, Tom Brady had 2 things to rely on, aside from Rob Gronkowski, he does not have this year. One is a far better offensive line, and the other is a far better running game, to where teams had to sell out against the Patriot run and allow Tom Brady those better looks, which he could then take advantage of. Now, I just want to be clear on this, though. Despite all that, he still scares me. As a guy who, I don't want to say I root against the Patriots, but I find myself betting against them a lot. It cost me a lot of money over the years. And so in those instances, rooting for my bets, you get anxious if Brady has a chance to drive the field and win the game, no matter how poorly he's played up to that point.
But you're assuming that between these two teams, you're going to get to the point where they are down to one final drive. I don't even know if the Patriots can hold with the Cowboys to the point where all it's going to be is one final drive for Tom Brady.
Well, listen, I think the Pats are going to win. I wouldn't be shocked if the Cowboys win. I would be shocked if the Cowboys blow them out. If the Cowboys take a game where they're basically a touchdown dog and Brady, the Pats are down so much late that it doesn't matter if Brady drives the field late. The question for this football game is going to be how much can the Cowboys defense create pressure on Brady, because that's, Greg, where he's been, no matter the GOAT stuff, where he's been very poor all year long.
And the Cowboys have been inconsistent in creating those pressures, so we'll see what happens.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.